something else included here?
All right, we are live once again. Today is
Just another day.
May 21st.
Other people out there having a hard time keeping up with like what weekday it is, and are we in the middle of the month, at the end of the month? Like, I have no idea. Somebody said a date earlier today, and I had to look at my watch, and I was like, oh, it's already the 21st.
Yeah, exactly. It's all blurring together in my mind. Anything particular that you've been thinking about today, or should we just go ahead and get to these videos?
Thinking about a few things, but maybe we should start with the videos so we don't get into...
You want to talk about them once we get to them?
Yeah?
Let's see what we've got today. How many videos do you have queued up here?
I just had like 3 or 4.
Looks like we got 11 videos in here.
I feel like these first 2 videos are probably what the title of this video will be once we change the title of the video.
Oh, I changed the title.
Oh, what are we titled tonight?
Well, I titled it off of a very small video that we have later in the show, but it's basically that Trump has said we will not shut down the economy again. If there's a second wave, no matter if it's embers or flames, we will put it out where it is. We will not shut down again.
Sounds...
And he said it was kind of casual the way he said it, so it probably sounds a little bit more dramatic.
Yeah.
The way I'm explaining it right now, but it's a pretty big deal because we've been talking recently about, will Americans put up with another shutdown knowing that it could potentially be for months? When we started all this, if they had said, hey, we're going to shut down for 2.5 months, I think people would have freaked out a lot more. But because they were like, oh, it's just going to be a week here. Oh, let's just extend another 2 weeks.
We were lied to for our own good. Well,
Yeah.
I think this first video it just leaves me in despair because I don't know if I have any idea of like what's real and what's not and what's true. And so maybe we should just cue this one up.
Let's do it.
This is new this morning. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now saying coronavirus does not spread easily by touching surfaces or objects, but it still may be possible. Francesca Amaker, social distancing at her home in Fulton County this morning. Francesca, this new information has many people confused, and it's stirring up a big conversation online.
It has a lot of people chiming in, questioning the CDC, questioning the research, Sheba. Now, keep in mind the CDC has always told us that coming into contact with a contaminated surface could put you at risk for catching coronavirus. However, it's just not as easily possible. That's what they're saying now. The agency says the coronavirus is a new disease and there's still much to be learned about it and how it spreads. And since the outbreak of the pandemic, people have been concerned about getting COVID-19 by simply touching an object, but that isn't the case. A doctor for WebMD tells USA Today, even if a virus may stay on a surface, it doesn't mean that it's actually infectious. The CDC still warns that the main way the virus spreads is through person-to-person contact. Now, this story has many people talking online, some upset, some in agreement. Sadita says, this is a novel virus. It has not been seen before, and as scientists understand its properties better, there will be periodic updates as to how it behaves and transmits. And then Jennifer says, I don't believe one word of this article. They know practically nothing about this virus. Post when you got the facts. In the meantime, I will continue to sterilize what I feel is necessary.
So I understand what the CDC is trying to say, that you still might be able to get the virus off surfaces. But 2 months ago, I was listening to epidemiologists and researchers and long podcasts where we had studies that were saying the virus can last up to 24 hours on this material and 48 hours on this material, and stainless steel is the worst. And now they're just saying, we think the likelihood of getting it from surface contact is so small. Yesterday, we had a video where subways are installing UVC lights so that we can pound all surfaces with, light that would destroy the virus. So
yeah, it's so strange that, and they also, I mean, you have to appreciate the fact that with new information, they're willing to come out and release it and look stupid and incompetent. So maybe that shows something positive, you know? If they were like, we can't share this, it makes us look totally incompetent. Well, they're not doing that. But, I mean, how can that not be the case? We've heard so many stories about people getting it because food was delivered and it was left on their doorstep.
Isn't
And
there
then
somebody in our community that claims that they were totally
I believe
quarantined and
so.
they got it through grocery delivery?
Maybe so. I don't know. But it just seems unlikely. And I mean, you know, like we were talking today, somebody in the neighborhood was talking about getting a poker game together. And you were like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Everybody touching the same cards and chips and everything. But what is this saying? That poker should be totally safe? But, you know, you're sitting right next to people, so.
Yeah, and then everyone's breathing into the center of a table. And, you know, it's animated when you get a big hand and, stuff's going. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, was it the CDC or was it the World Health Organization who said masks do not protect you and are not a vital part of, you know.
If anything, they can be more dangerous.
They can be more dangerous.
Yeah.
And then,
not wearing them correctly.
And then a month or two later, they were like, we all should be wearing masks. And I'm just like, are we just making this up as we go? I mean, we know about SARS from 10 or 15 years ago.
I know. It seems like we would have figured all this stuff out in the last 50 or 100 years.
Yeah.
And then every time some serious virus pops up, we go, okay, back to protocol. It's this level of seriousness, then we must do these steps. But it seems like they're just making stuff up as we go.
Well, I mean, I understand every virus is different and some are going to last longer than others. But I think the articles that I've read have said that they studied these in a laboratory setting. And in the real world, they act differently. And I'm like, is it that hard just to go find like an open house like we're in, like any house, and test the virus in a more real, like I understand if you're doing it in a laboratory, it's a very different environment. But can't we, what have we been doing for the last 6 months? Nobody thought to do these tests.
I know, it doesn't
in
make
your
any
car, in cold environments, in hot environments.
But they have done those tests, and they showed the virus was there. Remember, even on one of the cruise ships, they said they went in like a month or something later, and they found the virus, but it was...
It's just destroyed, I think.
Yeah, but they still found
remnants of it.
remnants. So, you know, I don't know. Good Lord, did somebody just give us a $200 super chat?
Wait, what?
Let me get to these other super chats, and we'll come down to that one. Robert Slowly says, hashtag Team Patrick. You've got a fan there. I didn't know your mom was watching.
It might be because of this beer. Have you ever had Blue Moon Iced Coffee Blonde?
No, I've never heard of that.
Just saw this at the market down there. I had to get some wine, and I saw this. I was like, that's different.
Well, I'm going to grab one in just a second.
It's pretty good. It's kind of, it's heavier than I would have thought, but it's clear, too. I don't know. It's interesting.
Steve Robertson, who you asked to change his profile picture, has now changed his profile picture to the Monopoly Man.
Oh.
And he says he's beginning to miss the Nutter Butters.
Where are the Nutter Butters?
I brought them upstairs because, I don't know, and I actually opened them all.
You've eaten them all?
No, one of them I opened yesterday, and it was a little stale. I think the bag had been opened a little bit. So I chunked that whole bag. And then the third bag that I had, the final bag, I have opened and I've put in a Tupperware. So I've been slowly eating them. But maybe we can bring them back just for you, Steve Robertson. All right, so let's see. What did this guy do? Did this guy really just give $200? Jared Land, thanks, guys. You have officially become my source of daily news. Well done. Lots of love from all of us at Red. Red cameras?
Sounds like it.
Well, good gosh. Thank you very much. And once again, do not use this as your only news source because we don't know what the hell we're talking about. But thank you so much, Jared. Good Lord.
Did you read Andrew Karn above? I wasn't worried till today. I'm a photographer, and my boss just informed me tonight that our videographer might have coronavirus. Just worked with him all day. I mean, it's going to be that's going to be everyone's reality for the next
years. It could be years like that.
I mean, I'm hearing a lot more people talking about the vaccine in terms of years and not in 6 months, in 12 months.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple clips coming up. I don't think they're next.
The next clip that I have, I think, is it's still on topic. I don't know if you want to cue that one up. I can't remember. I recorded this so early in the day that I don't remember exactly what.
Dude, good Lord. Starting a live broadcast was the greatest business decision of our lives. Steve Robertson just gave us $100, and he wants to be called AKA Uncle Pennybags. You know what, Uncle Pennybags? That's exactly what your name is. Good
You know,
gosh.
I logged in to try to see how Super Chats work, and it said we were in a region where we couldn't do Super Chats.
Yeah, we can't even do Super Chats. The other night when you were talking by yourself, I was trying to do Super Chats to this channel with our other F-Stoppers channel, and we would, every time I do it, we'd be losing 30%, but it wouldn't let me.
But that's on Wi-Fi. If you're on cell service...
Oh yeah, maybe if I'm on cell service, maybe it would let me. I don't know.
Otherwise, you need like a VPN or something. Maybe. Somebody yesterday, her name was Patricia, and if you're in this chat tonight, she said something about that too. Like, I can't do Super Chats, but I've wanted to say something, and I can't remember what you were trying to say now, but why don't you cue up the next video, and then we'll move on to the next news story from today.
CDC again.
So what do you think about that? It is interesting because we were told originally all these scary stories about how it hangs in the air for 24 hours, and then if it lands on metal, it's there for 48 to 72 hours, or on packages. That was really, you know, a bit of the early panic in all of this. Why would that change?
Yeah, you know, this is one of the reasons why it would be so valuable to hear from CDC scientists every day. You know, early on, when a new infectious agent appears, what we don't know far exceeds what we do know. So there's work that's done in laboratories. So work in a laboratory may say, well, we found in the laboratory this survives for a certain number of hours on different types of surfaces, and we can find it in the air. What you then need to do is say, okay, let's look in the community at what are the important ways this is spreading. And that's where you can see, yeah, well, in the laboratory you found that, but we found in the community that it's really being close to somebody who's sick within 6 feet. That's the important thing, and those other ways are not so important.
Yeah, it basically says that, you know, between people who are in close contact within 6 feet, through respiratory droplets, coughing, sneezing, all the ways that we, you know, sort of would anticipate in a normal situation. But this is, you know, much more contagious. So why is it, do you think, so much more contagious, or is it, given what we're learning now?
Well, you know, there's still a lot of unanswered questions in terms of that. When I compare it to something like the flu we know spreads really easy between children. Children get sick, they spread it to each other, they bring it home. One of the unanswered questions here is how important are children in disease transmission? And that's critically important because we all want to get our kids back to school this fall. And if we can understand how do we do that in a safe way? You know, as a parent, as a pediatrician, I want to know that the safeguards are in place to limit the risk as much as possible. We can't eliminate it, but can we drive it down so that people are comfortable getting their children back to school?
He's like, as a parent, I am ready to get my kids back to school next fall.
Yeah.
As a pediatrician, though.
It might kill them, but it's worth the
How
risk.
many people out there are tired of dealing with their kids on a daily basis? It's like summer that never ends.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. But it's interesting because a lot of our friends here in Puerto Rico homeschool their kids. So they've already got a system, they're accustomed to it, the kids are ready to learn at certain times. The other interesting thing, though, that I've talked to a lot of homeschooling parents here, they claim that they can get everything they need done in around 1.5 to 3 hours a day.
Really?
If you really just focus, and it makes sense. I mean, when you really think about how much time is wasted at a school catching up the slowest student, if you can just teach one kid, and if they understand it, you immediately move on, or, well, you got the math that we need to do today, boom, we're on to history, then you could really get through things a lot faster, and you would retain the information better, I think, because you're having that one-on-one education.
You're not having to have breaks all the time, and you're having to get the juice from the cafeteria and line up and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's just so much wasted time at all schools, but especially, you know, when there's 30 kids in a class and they're misbehaving and stuff.
So Jared Land is the president and CEO, co-owner of Red.
Oh, awesome.
So that's pretty cool that he watches. I feel a little like that's where you're getting your news from.
Yeah, you should not be watching this for that. But we're trying to pick the most interesting clips every day. And, you know, I still have yet to use a Red camera. I have been on many sets with Red cameras, but I've always been horrified to use Red cameras simply for the file sizes after the case. Now, I've heard that they have proprietary software and editing their raw files aren't as crazy as you might think.
Yeah.
But, you know, editing our low-quality 4K footage from our 10 gigabit server, I feel like that gets laggy at times and stuff. So the idea of editing 8K footage raw is just
You remember that
insane.
time we got a Red for Peter Hurley? We made him shoot a
that's
headshot.
right. That's the closest I've ever come
And
to
he
using
shot
one.
video, and then he had to go frame by frame. And it's almost like you need to go like 10 frames by 10 frames because he was just sitting there so long trying to pull out the perfect still. There's some video on YouTube. It's like video versus, what do you know what the name of it is? It's like,
I don't know.
does video, like screen grabs, hold up to
We should
high-res?
redo that video again because I have to imagine we did that so long ago.
That was like the first year.
That Red existed?
First year of F-Stoppers, first year or two.
No, I don't believe that. Anyway, I'm
was a long time
sure
ago.
Red cameras are just on a whole other level, so that would be interesting to redo that and see their highest quality camera, if it's shooting 8K RAW, what that looks like compared to an 8K still camera RAW, you know.
Well, and maybe we want to start a photography show soon, but
One day.
we just found that a couple days ago, Adobe just released the new Premiere 2020,
Yeah.
and it now uses more of the graphics card to be able to render video.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it's happening while you're actually playing back. I think it's
Just
encoding.
exporting?
Yeah, just when you're exporting. But yeah, I've got a lot to learn about that as well. All right, what is this, a photography show?
No.
We're talking about coronavirus. Here's a little bit of good news right before I show a little bit of bad news.
Tonight, potential breakthroughs at two of the nation's premier research labs. At Harvard's Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, more evidence that recovering from COVID-19 may lead to immunity against reinfection. Researchers say 9 rhesus monkeys that recovered from virus-induced pneumonia developed antibodies to the virus and had near complete protection when they were re-exposed a month later. That could suggest immunity from a second infection.
Our studies show theoretically that there is natural protective immunity to this virus, and it gives us optimism that these will likely be the case in humans.
So immunity is possible in monkeys.
Yeah, I mean, we heard this the other day from another lab. So I believe that there are at least 3 labs now that claim that their vaccine is working. And I don't know how, I think maybe I've heard there are over 20 different vaccines currently. Maybe I just made that up, but that sounds familiar to me.
There's so much debate in the findings, though. I mean, did you see Moderna again dropped 10% today?
Dude, you played that perfect, man. You went in, and then you, at the height, you sold.
I'm going to buy some more tomorrow, maybe?
Really, I feel like you might be a little early, but who am I to say? You are on a roll right now. I just talked to our buddy here in the neighborhood, and I was talking to him about something else, but we started talking about the stock market, and he was like, yeah, right before the stock market crashed, I sold everything and got out. And I was like, damn, that's awesome. And then he was like, then I started buying puts all the way down. I bought puts, and I've made more money with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did you know when to stop? And he's like, I knew when to stop. I think he said he bought like $10,000 or $15,000 worth of additional puts that lost because the stock market started going back up.
Yeah.
So he's like, now I'm just waiting, and he's going to write it down again. But I'm like, you played that almost perfectly. It's
Yeah.
just crazy to think I mean, I guess if you just stayed in the market now, you really wouldn't be down that much.
Yeah.
10%.
Well, I don't know if it was yesterday's show or it was the Zoom conference after that. I think it was the Zoom chat afterwards. We were talking about buying stock or something into these UVC companies because everyone's going to be buying. Like my dad bought some sort of UVC projector light for his dental practice.
These are the lights that you shine in a room to disinfect them.
Right, and we're seeing them in the subways now. But if they're saying, the CDC is now saying that, I'm like, maybe that's not a good bet. I didn't spend enough time today looking to see if you could actually invest in one of those companies. A lot of them are private companies that you can't just buy a stock in. But I was thinking, man, if there was an ETF of just like that type of business, that would be really exciting. But you never know with this stuff.
Yeah. All right, here's a little bit of bad news. Maybe good news for me.
This morning, a joint investigation by the Mayo Clinic and ABC News. Researchers at the clinic concluding that many of those COVID-19 antibody tests flooding the market shouldn't be trusted. 4 out of 9 quick finger prick tests examined by the Mayo Clinic deemed not up to medical standards. One test even giving a positive result for COVID-19 antibodies when, as you can see in this video, only saline, not a blood sample, was added. An automatic fail.
So clearly there had been a mistake in how that kit was constructed.
Mayo Clinic researchers found more sophisticated tests using a full vial of blood sent away to a laboratory fared better, but only slightly.
Out of the 10 test kits that we looked at, there were 4 that really had, A+ ratings. There were a couple that were in the B range, and there were 3 that were definitely in the F range we wouldn't want to use in the clinical laboratory.
So what the heck? These tests, man. I don't know what, one of the tests said it was you put like basically any liquid on it and it's just, oh, you have COVID. So, in a way, I kind of wish that I had gotten that test. Because, at least in my mind, I would think that I was immune.
Well, this is the worry that I have is, are these tests just not designed correctly? Or why is there so much variability in all of these tests? And will we ever get to the point when we can actually properly test everyone? A lot of people, a couple weeks ago, were saying we need to be testing, is it like 5 million tests a day? Maybe that seems crazy, but that doesn't even seem like enough. But
that's what somebody was suggesting.
That if you go into a warehouse, if you go into a slaughterhouse, like if you go to Walmart, like every one of those people need to be tested before they go into work. And you're just like, why, if we don't even have a test that's so limited right now that's accurate?
Right. Yeah.
I read an article, I don't know if you have a video of this, but it said that that China is starting to already lock down their PPE facilities, and they're not I think they were saying they weren't necessarily going to start shipping it out, and it's a sign that maybe the virus is hitting China really hard again because they're hoarding all of this PPE for their country. And if they didn't have an issue with it, then they should be manufacturing that and shipping it to places that need it.
I'm not sure if I completely agree with. I think everyone's trying to be prepared for a second wave.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean the second wave is hitting them right now. Not sure.
Zach J says, you guys are also my only news source. It is so great to listen to professionals like Lee and Patrick give expert medical and stock advice. I agree. Like, I'm glad we're able to share this.
A lot of people used to say that the Daily Show on Comedy Central was their only news source. Like, I was probably one of those people.
Yeah.
Where I just would never watch the news, but I would occasionally watch the Daily Show, and I felt like he always covered the news in a humorous way, and he'd hit on the most important parts.
Yeah.
And he was like, I hate it when people tell me that I'm their only news source because we're a comedy show.
Yeah.
And that's basically what this is. This is like a comedy show that's not even funny. You shouldn't be watching this for your only source of news.
Sean Taylor says, my 11-year-old daughter can get her schoolwork done in 2 hours a day. I wonder the same thing. How much time is wasted in school for some students?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just goes to show you how much you are capable of accomplishing if you can focus. And I'm not just talking about students. I'm talking about all employees. I'm talking about myself. So much time is wasted doing any number of things. And if you can really just say, this is what I need to get done. I'm going to get it done as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and then on to the next thing. You could probably be 100 times more successful in life, but those YouTube videos are always calling my name. Next up.
Have you seen this?
No.
Also, we're starting our tracing operation, and this is totally new. A person who tests positive, the tracers will then contact that person and ask who they may have exposed. And you could get a phone call following up on this tracing information, saying you were with John Smith last night. John Smith is now positive. You may want to be tested. On your telephone, if you have one of the new fancy phones, which I do not, it will come up NYS contact tracing. You should answer that call. It's not a hoax. It's not a scam. It's not a fraud. That is an official message saying New York State contact tracing is calling.
That's crazy. So this is not something you're opting into.
No, this is now just happening.
Wow.
And so they already have all your phone numbers, and they have a way to get in touch with you.
Goodness.
It would appear. Now, maybe this isn't going to actually call everybody. Maybe it's only calling people within a database. And then you have to ask, well, is everyone going to now sign in to be part of the database? Or does our government already have the database, and it's just going to come to...
And have you looked into how this works? I mean, this does not seem possible in a city like Manhattan or New York City, where people are stacked on top of each other. You know, when you're in New York City, the GPS is not accurate anyway. If you go up a few stories in a building, it'll think that you're going, you know, perpendicular to the ground. How in the world would it know who you're in contact with when there's millions of people all walking around each other every second?
Is this all based on GPS, or does this have a human input? Is it the guy has tested positive, and now they ask him, is this... You've walked past somebody or you've sat next to somebody in a coffee shop that you don't know? Or this is, you know, you've said, hey, I've been at parties with these people, and then the system just, the people put that information in and then they call you. Seems like you would have to have it more automated.
I mean, if that's the case, then it almost just seems like a helpful service to people who are sick, who would normally be calling themselves, but can't because they're sick with coronavirus. So this service will just call all your friends for you. It doesn't seem like that. So I don't know. Is this the only thing you've seen? I would imagine Fox News tomorrow will have an entire story about
I don't know. I mean, this was Cuomo's press conference today. But can we also talk about how Chris, this isn't Chris, this is... Andrew. How the governor of New York State doesn't have one of those fancy phones that can receive, like, how does he not have an iPhone?
I don't know.
That's probably like the iPhone 2 has been able to take a phone call and tell you the name of the person if it's like a service.
Yeah, but a normal flip phone wouldn't have the ability to track you, maybe, like a smartphone with Google Maps can.
The flip phone, yes, but what I'm saying is, like, he doesn't have like an iPhone 5. He didn't have a smartphone at all.
Yeah, that seems
really strange to me.
Wild. Zestoy says, awesome chat, chaps. Been watching all your shows, just testing if the super chat from here works. Yes, it does, but you may want to test it again. Just kidding. Okay, next clip.
Did you not get, I can't see where we're at with the super chats. Zach J says, already spoke with the bank to take reverse mortgage out on my home and cashing out retirement to go all in on Moderna tomorrow, like Patrick says. Hey, 10% if it works out for you. That'd be the greatest super chat ever.
And if it doesn't work out, what do you owe him?
I mean, we win some, we lose some.
Okay.
Don't send it through super chat because that 10% will be eaten up by YouTube quite quickly.
The optimist in me would like to think that maybe it will go away and it'll the virus will mutate and won't become as. But you know what? We've never had a pandemic in recorded history that has not had a second wave. So now's our time to regroup, learn as much as we can over the coming weeks and months, and prepare.
That's a new bit of information for me that you would think every news channel would be touting all the time. We've never had a pandemic in history before that hasn't had a second wave.
Well, I was listening to a podcast today while I was working out, and I thought that they said, how many pandemics did they say was in the last decade, like last century? I think it was like 5. We've had 4 or 5 true pandemics, and I thought they said like 4 out of the 5. They didn't say all, so I don't know what constitutes being a true pandemic and what a true second wave is.
All right.
But
and what is a second wave? If we are locked down and then we come out and the numbers go up, does that count as a second wave? Or second wave is it naturally starts to die in the summer and then it comes back in the winter?
I don't know. Like 2 months ago when this all was beginning and we all became, certified epidemiologists, I remember thinking a second wave is the virus has mutated and it has now come back, maybe even infecting those that were hit the first time but have built up immunity to the weaker strain. So I don't know, second wave, does it mean any one of these things in particular, or is it just the next big acceleration in cases?
Right. Who knows?
Have they been talking much? Like there was a lot of talk a month ago or two about different strains, like some of them just had enough biological markers that we could see where they came from. The California strain was different than the New York strain, and the New York strain didn't come from China, but it actually came from Europe. Has anyone been talking more about there's supposed to be like a more deadly strain and a weaker strain? Like, have we gotten any more news on that?
I have heard of that, but I have not heard anyone speak of it recently, which again seems so weird. It seems so easy to test that. I don't understand why you hear rumblings of this information and then it just disappears. One of the things I brought up to you earlier today was, whatever happened to Kim Jong-un? Wasn't that dude supposed to be dead or dying, and then he popped up for a single day, and it was like some fat Kim Jong-un that didn't really look like him, and then he hasn't appeared since? It's so weird. And
Did you look into this?
Right before the show, I Googled it, and there was actually an article today that came out. Dennis Rodman went on some show, and he said something like, I have contact with North Korea.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm going to tell you, make sure that you guys check the quote itself, but it was like, the only thing I'm going to say is when you start seeing his sister, something is seriously wrong because she is the next person in charge.
So have we seen her?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
But he was like, that's all I'm going to say.
Way to clarify it, Dennis.
Exactly. So, I don't know. This next clip is from, I think, the hospital in Queens in New York. I think this is one of the, most hard-hit hospitals in the world, and kind of an interesting outlook currently on it.
There's almost a scary silence because normal operations haven't started yet, but yet new coronavirus cases have gone down. When coronavirus hit, people were not coming for other emergencies. What doctors are afraid of now is that that's still the case. People may be dying at home because they're not going to the hospital.
And it's got the ability to talk to the patients without going in the room. It's got an intercom system.
They were rapidly scrambling to try to reconfigure. There is a real urgency to get these hospitals back to being able to care for patients who did not have coronavirus. But also, they have to plan for the possibility that there will be another surge.
So
scary silence in hospitals. What you name that video?
That's what she called it.
Well, that's not going to help with all of the protesters who are saying it's a hoax and that it's time to get back to work and let us out of our homes.
Yeah, we've got a friend here in the neighborhood who we were talking to tonight who owns a bunch of the, I don't know if they're hospitals or the
urgent
care things or whatever, but he was saying that his business has just been destroyed from this. People are coming to get the COVID test, but not for any other reason. And so...
So what do you do? Do you... And what do people that own these hospitals do? If you have an appendicitis or if you have a skateboarding injury or like any normal number of things that are not COVID related, do you just like, I mean, you can't just stay at your house. You got to go to a hospital, right?
Yeah, I think.
And then do these hospitals not treat normal people, or could business be greater because if you chose to say, I mean, I know this guy is...
all hospitals are open. This guy's not doing surgeries and stuff, I don't think. So I think you would say the urgent care places might be a little more elective.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, you feel sick, you want to get a flu test, you want to get a flu shot, you want to get something checked out before they send you to a big hospital.
Yeah.
But, I mean, big hospitals, I haven't heard of any major hospitals shutting down, but I've heard so many of them are in financial trouble currently.
But he is seeing COVID patients.
Yes.
He apparently tested the test that you took
Yes.
on people who were confirmed to have had it.
Yes.
And some percentage of the batch of tests that we got did show positive, correct results.
Right.
But I wonder, is he also getting all of that? I mean, he's not putting people on ventilators, is he?
Oh, I'm sure not. Not in an urgent
so he's
care.
not getting all of the extra,
No.
the money for having COVID
No.
people. He's just diagnosing them and then sending them out.
Yeah. All right, so this next clip is the clip of Trump talking about not shutting down again. Again, it's very casual. Audio is really bad, but hopefully you'll be able to hear.
People say that's a very distinct possibility. It's standard, and we're going to put out the fires. We're not going to close the country. We're going to put out the fires. There could be, whether it's an ember or a flame, we're going to put it out. But we're not closing our country.
Again, it comes back down to who has the right to make these decisions. Is it a government decision? Is it a state decision? Is it a town decision? You know, like, people always, you know, we've said this quote many times, it's like somebody peeing in the shallow end of the pool, but it's not like that. I mean, I pee in the pool all the time, and if we're in a huge pool, by the time it gets to you, it's so diluted out that it's not a big deal. With the virus,
You're still getting pee on you.
No, not really. Not really. I mean, if you're in a big enough pool, maybe if you're in a baby pool, it's a big deal. That's why I never go to those like kiddie pools when they have the little pools for the babies. Like, don't go in there. But like the ocean, if you're peeing in the ocean, it's not a big deal at all. I mean, I pee in the shower. I don't feel like it's a big deal. But the virus, you actually get infected by it. So I don't think that's a fair comparison.
You're saying that the virus is worse than getting pee on you in a pool.
I'm saying that's basically what I'm saying.
You know what? I think I agree with you.
You think you agree?
I think I agree. I'd rather get in a public swimming pool than catch coronavirus. Zestoy just says, ouch, sorry, forgot this was in my local currency. He gave us 400 RON. I have no idea what an RON is worth, but thank you very much for the RON.
Ron also gave us 50 RON before the,
well, that RON is the currency, not his name. His name is Zestoy.
Right, but he gave us 50 before the 400.
Right. So I have no idea if this is worth like $1 or if this is worth $10,000. I don't know.
People are saying that the system in New York is not GPS based. It actually requires a human input. So which makes it so much less effective.
Right.
Exactly. It's like you just have to remember the people that you came in contact with. And you're like, there was like 4 guys there that I just met. I don't remember their names, but we were in a conversation. I wish I could remember who they were, but...
They're like, don't worry, we've tracked your phone. We know every single person you've spoken to. We've been listening through the microphone. 420 Tendies says, I'm printing F-Stoppers Tendies, a.k.a. Tendy Stoppers. Appreciate it. Patricia...
it's what's just talking about.
Oh, too poor to buy more chat. Thank you for these vlogs. You are so welcome.
Patricia
Good
was the one
gosh,
who
400 RON is $100. What is going on? Like, everybody's so generous tonight. I mean, I'm not complaining. Thank you guys, but like, it's getting ridiculous.
What currency is RON?
I don't know.
1 RON
Romanian
is roughly 25 cents. Okay.
Wow. Well, thank you very much,
Remember that time?
Zestoy.
Remember that time we went to Czech Republic? We were in Prague, and we changed out money.
Yeah, we got ripped off.
And a guy was there, like, willing to exchange money, and, like, every alarm was going off, like, this is not normal. Why are we doing this?
He was trembling. So we were waiting in line at a money changer, and there was a few people in line, and this guy came up to us and was like, I will
give you a better rate than what?
Exchange money with you right now, and I won't charge you the fee. And we were like, cool, let's do that. And he starts pulling out money, and he is trembling. And I should have immediately went, oh, this guy's ripping me off, and he's freaking out right now. He ended up giving us some current, you know, we didn't know what the currency looked like.
It was a Belarus ruble or something.
It's something that didn't exist anymore.
It was one of those fiat currencies that basically went to nothing.
Yeah. So we got had. Andrew Karn says, whole team is probably going to be down for at least 2 weeks now. Guess our vid guy knew he was with someone sick and just didn't have results yet. Team mad AF. Yeah, it's tricky, man.
And that's like the tough part is when I flew back from Miami 2 months ago, there was this, when you're in that quarantine period and you really think, especially for Andrew, I mean, if you've been with somebody, all kinds of crazy things go through your mind. You start wondering, like, do I have it? Am I going to get sick? Every little thing you're feeling, you're like, is this intestinal thing I have? Is this from the virus?
Yeah.
I have a headache. You know, maybe something tastes off, and you're like, do I have a loss of taste?
Yeah.
And
Is it going to come back?
Well, and then you start thinking of, like, I don't know if you did this. You start thinking about, like, your will and start thinking about, like, should I tell family members things that I want done at the end of my life? And is that premature? Am I acting crazy?
Right.
Like, you start going through all this stuff, which it's probably better to be prepared for that, you know, but it's scary.
Yeah, but it's not healthy, you know, like even if you have, you know, an almost zero chance of dying of the flu, there is a chance you could die of the flu, but your mind would never even go there.
Yeah.
But under these conditions, when it's all you hear about and you join in to the F-Stoppers live coronavirus journal every night and then we pound it into your head, yeah, you're going to go crazy. So try not to think like that. Zestoy says, 450 is just over $100. I've been watching all your shows for months, just paying you back. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You know, at times I get a little discouraged, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point of doing the show? We've created this new YouTube channel. We're getting, obviously, far fewer views than we did on our established channel. But then, like, I've talked to a lot of people. People email me and send me private message on F-Stoppers and Facebook and everything. I would say the majority of people who message me say, I have not missed a single episode. I'm like, good Lord. My mom, I always joke, is my biggest fan. She goes a little crazy and she watches everything. She's like, I cannot watch. Yeah. Like, you guys are doing an hour and a half every day. I can't keep up with this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. I even like overdid it for my mom.
Yeah.
But there's some of you guys out there who have been with us the whole time.
Well, after you showed me on Facebook how to find those filtered messages,
yeah,
all of the people messaging me are just like, go kill yourself, Patrick. So you've gotten a very different response than me. So,
are you joking, or were they really haters? Okay.
No. But we do have another super chat here.
All right, read it, Pat.
I want Elia Licardi as a featured guest on this nonsense show soon. You know, someone sane, not a Trump voter or an incorrigible conspiracy theorist. Incorrigible. Someone who's literate too, probably, would help.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you're the conspiracy theorist, so he believes that I am a Trump voter. I've always enjoyed not letting people know my political standing. You know, I've given hints here and there, but
here's the thing about conspiracy theories is I don't know that I believe. Can you peg me on one that I like am full blown behind? I do like to think about them and I like to consider them. I think there's hints of truth in a lot of them. And if you say I'm going to dismiss it entirely, I think you're also like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like there's there's some truth probably in the conspiracy theories as well. I don't know about the 5G stuff. Like that stuff's kind of crazy, but some of the other, you know, are they trying to get us away from fiat money into digital currency? Are we trying to get universal basic income in America? Are we trying to get universal health care in America? Like, are there other things, not necessarily the virus was created for this, but are there other things that are going to come out of this? Some of these truths and some of these speculations are wrapped in reality. And I like to just look at all of them and say, like, what is possible? I mean, my dad, for my whole life, was talking about a biological weapon. And I know this isn't proven or even thought by the majority of people to be a manufactured weapon. But this is the closest thing to it. This is a pandemic that is shutting down the world.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking every so often, I'm like, what would a biological weapon? Somebody brought this up in the chat.
It could be so much worse.
It could be so much worse, but this is exactly the sort of thing we would be dealing with that.
Oh, I just don't. I mean,
we'd be more angry, and we might know who did it. But, you know, the death rate could be higher, the fear could be higher, but we'd all be doing the same thing. Our economy would shut down. If it was this viral, the world would shut down. Many of the same things we're doing right now are exactly what we would be doing in a biological warfare sort of situation. You know, maybe we'd be looking at things, not like when's a vaccine coming, but we might be saying the world's so contaminated that, like, could you imagine the hopelessness of thinking, like, we may never be able to go back to New York City? Because this virus is like living, it's like Chernobyl. It's like that city is done. But I think a lot of the response would be very similar to what we're doing now. It's just we feel a lot better about it because it's not that deadly, it's not that contagious, and it feels like we will get back to normal. And we don't have anyone to really point a finger at because we don't feel like it's been biologically created.
Some of us.
You'll never know.
Darren Hong says, I watch every day too. Thanks for the content. Thank you so much, Darren. Uncle Money Penny, isn't that what he wanted to be called? He says he gave you Monopoly money. Hopefully not. Hopefully RON is worth what everybody says it is.
Battling over who will pay more?
Yeah, who's the most thankful for this video series? I don't know. But we do appreciate everybody's being really nice tonight, which is nice. You know, that is one thing that has been a little bit refreshing about moving over to this other channel, is that like 99% of the people who subscribe are subscribing just because they enjoy this show.
Yeah.
Whereas 99% of the subscribers from the other channel were like, what the hell is this? We just subscribe for F-Soppers content. So everybody was mad all the time. For the most part, it seems like everybody's really happy over here, which is nice.
Kinley says you should edit all of Patrick's stuff so that he sounds exactly like his dad.
That's a good idea. That would just take so long. Somebody else should work on that. You guys have access to all the coronavirus videos. If somebody puts together a montage of Patrick saying stupid stuff, we will put it in the next video. Let's talk about the next clip that we have here. Oh yeah, I heard about this. California governor wants $1 trillion. Why not?
Public health, public safety is impacted, public education is impacted very directly. That doesn't need to happen. And the purpose of federal government is to keep people safe and also focus on the well-being of our citizens. At the end of the day, we're not looking for charity, we're not looking for handout. We believe this is social responsibility. It's not a red issue, it's not a blue issue, it's not a large state issue or a small state issue. It's an American issue. You heard Jerome Powell himself today talk about the impact of this, the likes of which we've never seen in our lifetime. And so it's incumbent upon the federal government to do more and to do better at this moment. And I'm not pointing fingers when I say that. I am just saying we have a shared responsibility to the American people, 40 million that live in the state of California.
The bill is already receiving some pushback, some opposition. We spoke to Senator Pat Toomey earlier on CNBC today. Here's what he had to say.
There's a real debate as to whether there should be any federal funding going directly to states and municipalities to replace lost revenue. Why is it that the federal government should be the source of this money? I mean, states and municipalities have taxing authority of their own.
How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fundamental central purpose of the federal government. What is, we should ask, the purpose of federal government, if not to protect its citizens and to address the issue of social responsibility at a time of great need? And let me just underscore the great need. If it's not obvious, it should be obvious to everybody. We have Depression-era unemployment. The numbers we've seen made public significantly understate the severity of the economic crisis in the United States of America. It's well north of 20% unemployment. And the reality is, as we toggle back, as we reopen the economy, California, roughly 90% of the economy now is conditionally reopened, you can't run a 90% economy. Consumer demand simply will not pick back up to where it was pre-pandemic. So if it's not obvious, the answer is why. It certainly will be over the course of the next weeks and months. And I hope not just Republican senators, but Democratic leaders across the spectrum recognize that and meet this moment.
Do you think 90% of the economy being back is not enough to generate the revenue and tax revenue that you need for society to go back to normal to some degree?
Not if you already don't have a balanced budget, you know. It seems like, isn't California always in trouble? Don't they have one of the highest tax states, but they don't have enough money somehow?
Well, in that interview, he gets into a lot of, you know, the GDP of California and how much I think maybe in this next clip, he says California is like the 5th largest country in the world, something like that.
I have heard that.
And I just wonder, he wants $1 trillion, and the government has already made $4 or $5 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's 20% of what's already been issued to the people. I don't know. I think this is a big debate that a lot of people are going to have. It's like, well, is he doing this because he wants to have access to the Fed? If the Fed is just printing money and giving it, and basically we're just giving people money from the federal government, the states don't have that same access, right?
Yeah, they're not on the PPP list. They don't get that loan or whatever.
But doesn't it seem like the government's already doing enough by saying all citizens, we're going to like give you this money in this blanket way? Like if every state now has to...
But if that money is untaxable, like isn't that his argument, is that we literally are not making enough money from taxes because nobody's making any money to pay for the stuff to just keep the state rolling. And I do understand the argument. Like if you're already printing the money and it doesn't have any ill effect, then like you should be giving it to the states too. But this is the scary thing that we've been talking about the last few days, that once they have now proven that you can do this,
yeah,
why not? Why not $2 trillion per state? You know? I don't know. I feel like it's incredibly dangerous, but he can look like the hero to his state and be like, look, I'm going to bat for you guys. Like, we got to get this money. It's Trump that's not doing it.
It's just a vicious cycle of bureaucracy has gotten so bloated and big that we need these huge budgets to keep that thing afloat. But if we want to up the taxes, the people aren't going to stand for it, but you almost need everything to collapse to where you're like, all right, let's get rid of all of these crazy programs, you know?
Right.
I don't know what the answer is, and there's parts of California that are probably very different than other parts of California, you know? It's easy to think of California as like LA and San Francisco and the big cities, but, you know, there's areas that are farmland and mountainsides, and, you know, those people aren't living in the same realm as people in LA, you know?
By the way, has anybody heard from Photo Mike tonight? I feel like the information that we got last night was not sufficient. Maybe we missed some chat messages from him, but he's basically been in here for weeks with us. He said he came down with coronavirus. He disappeared for a week. Last night he popped back up, said he was in the hospital getting tests done. I want more information, Photog Mike. And I mean, it would be great, Photog Mike, we could just interview you on camera live one night. So whoever knows who Photo Mike is in real life, send him a message. Tell him that we want to know how he's doing. Sam Smith says, Newsroom is Nancy Pelosi's nephew. Shocker, $1 trillion. Newsom. I didn't know that.
I have another video of him, if you don't mind sitting through it. But in the same video, he also discusses the news anchor says, like, what do you think of Elon Musk's threat to leave the state of California? And will that hurt you? Maybe he covers a little, they keep bringing it back to that. But I don't know if you saw this article, I think it was yesterday, that Elon Musk has dropped his lawsuit against the county.
Yeah, because he just went against them and they let him continue.
So if that lawsuit would have only gone forward if they actually would have told him,
probably,
you have to shut down?
Because he got what he wanted. He got to open back up.
Is he going to get what he really wants, and that's to leave California?
I mean, he can do whatever he wants. But he didn't say he was moving Tesla. He said he was moving Tesla's headquarters. All right. Let's see Gavin Newsom
Some
number
interesting
2.
trends are emerging in this pandemic world, Governor, and one is work from home. And there are a couple of companies, both run by Jack Dorsey, who say now that that workers can permanently work from home, Square as well as Twitter. And I'm wondering if you're concerned that could mean a flight out of California cities, but be out of the state in general.
No, I think that was a trend line that will become a headline. I think we've accelerated change that was already underway. I think some are promoting radical change. I believe we're just accelerating change that was underway. As it relates to telework, new work styles, work models, that was already happening with the merger of IT and globalization detonating at the same time. Something foundational has been happening in our economy for decades, and this pandemic has just clarified that focus. So I think it's going to require all of us to be more resilient, more respectful to the nature of change, and more capable of meeting a regulatory mindset that meets that change, not as an impediment, but to support it.
How many people we talk to? I think I know more people in New York than I do LA, but I've heard so many people say people aren't going back to New York City, that so many people are going to flee the city. I don't even know it's related to this idea of work for home, but it probably is to some degree. It's just I don't want to be in a densely populated city, especially during all of this, but maybe this is the time to just give up the whole urban 10 million people mega city.
Yeah, but I just feel like New York City is so concentrated and so many people from all over the planet want to go there that, yeah, I could see people moving out of there and maybe prices drop a little bit and just more people come in. And I don't see New York changing that much. California, on the other hand, I've been hearing about pissed off business owners in California for years now. They are so sick of all the regulation and the high taxes and all the traffic and everything. They're like, why am I putting up with this?
Yeah.
So I could see California being hit harder if people have the ability to now work from home.
I was reading an argument from somebody just arguing about Silicon Valley and the idea that this is the perfect time for all of these people to leave the city that is so expensive. They need these multi-$100,000 jobs just to afford the cost of living. It's like one of the highest cost of living in America for certain.
Where?
Outside of San Francisco,
Okay.
and even outside of like Seattle, Washington and stuff. And you could now just move to a suburb. You could move out of the state and work remotely. And many of these tech companies, they are so advanced and they have the smartest minds in the world that is perfectly ripe for this kind of transition. And the person was just making the argument that they would never be able to attract the talent that they actually want if they did that. Part of the appeal is having those people in a concentrated area and them all competing and jumping from spot to spot. But his argument didn't sound that convincing to me. I was like, can't you still just be an awesome coder and an awesome entrepreneur that you can still make these jumps remotely and not have to go into work?
Yeah, and I'm sure you could fly in when you had an important meeting or, you need to work on a project for a couple of days and then you just fly back home. But,
And we've been hearing a lot of, this is just talking off the cuff of my head, but like we've been hearing a lot of stories of people saying like Twitter is not going back to the office until next year,
Yeah. Well, I thought Twitter said
ever?
that, yeah, you don't ever have to come back to
So
the office.
my question is if you have a $200,000 job working in Silicon Valley, could you up and move? I mean, I know California has these crazy laws where they come after you if you've relocated. Do you know the name of this? I mean, I've heard of people moving to Florida because Florida has 0% income tax, and California will say, we're not going to acknowledge that you've moved to Florida. Or you own a home in California that you're trying to use as a second home, but we're going to treat it as a first. They do all these crazy things. Like California does not want to give up the tax. But if you lived in one of these states, could you just move to a low tax state just nearby with the same pay and have the company, like the company's not going to give you a demotion, right? Eventually, they'd probably just phase you out and hire new people at a lower rate.
Maybe.
But they're not going to demote you. So, I mean, if you have a $200,000 job, some of these people are making like 150 grand plus another 100 or 200 in stock options. They pad the salary with a stock option. could you just like pick up and move? I mean, especially we're halfway through the year now. I don't know how that totally works, but if we're talking about this might go into next year, and companies are okay with you working remotely, and you have no reason to be in the city, you're just like, you feel like you got to live there because that's where you have to live. I mean, you could make bank if your income tax dropped quite a bit statewide, if you just jumped to the neighboring state and still made the same income working remotely.
Absolutely. Or, you know, a lot of this, if people are not necessarily tired of the taxes, but they're tired of the incredibly
Lifestyle or
expensive housing.
Yeah.
You could move 2 hours away from the city and still be in an amazing, beautiful place in California where the housing prices are probably a quarter of the cost. And you could drive in when you needed to. I've got one more clip here. And this is just bringing up the debate on immunity. Once you have had the virus, are you immune? And if you are, how long are you immune? Maybe the antibodies dissipate over time?
Are asking, if you've recovered from COVID, how long will you have antibodies that should provide protection?
Will they still be there, let's say, in the fall or next, next winter if we get another wave of, the SARS-CoV-2 infection? Will they still be around at that point and be able to provide protection?
And we don't know that right now.
We do not know that right now, no.
If the antibodies do provide immunity, then people who have antibodies could have a sort of immunity passport, allowing them clearance to return to work and perhaps even travel.
Hey, NBC News fan.
Perhaps even travel. So
a lot of this has to go back to the conversation we had a few days ago about having an antibody that you can just inject into someone's blood and they would then be protected from the virus, versus your body having a natural immune response in response to the virus. So if you've had COVID already, your body has, I forget what it is, helper T cells, like one of your cells has a memory, and it is then able to reactivate and then pump out antibodies that would then control, the spread of the disease within you already. So it's how long are you going to be able to have that natural immunity from within? But if we could come up with the other alternative, an antibody that you could just inject, almost like a vaccine in a way, then maybe that could hold you over. We just have to have everybody have this long enough that the virus naturally just becomes kind of extinct within the within humanity.
It's just as simple as that.
Just as simple as that.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up all the videos that we had to cover today. We also got kind of good news here in Puerto Rico. People are picking on you saying that's called a vaccine. No, I don't think it's called a vaccine. The vaccine makes your body create an immune response. You're talking about taking antibodies from someone else and injecting them into another person.
Or I guess you could have synthetic antibodies. A vaccine is you've taken, there's different vaccines, but you can take a weakened strain of the virus, a destroyed strain of the virus. Like there's different things you can do. But you inject that into your body recognizes it as if it's a real threat, and it learns how to make the antibodies for it while it's in a weakened state, so it doesn't overcome your body and you die.
But there are not antibodies in the vaccine.
No, but they have the same receptors that your body would recognize and make the antibody.
Right.
So that's what everyone wants to create in these labs. But there's also people trying to make a synthetic antibody that you could just inject that would then block the virus from being able to replicate or being able to bind to these sites.
We got a little bit of good news today here in Puerto Rico, kind of. On Monday, they are loosening our lockdown a little bit. Our curfew has been extended until June 15th, so we still cannot be outside past 7 p.m. But they are...
Which is right around sunset. Maybe just after sunset?
is right around 7 right now.
7:30. So the best time of the day to shoot, we're not allowed to be out.
Yeah. Restaurants can be open before curfew at 25% capacity, I believe. Golf courses can be open, but one person per cart or something. Tennis still closed. Beaches can be open for walkers, joggers, and surfers, but not to sit and hang out.
Swimmers? Can you swim?
I think you can swim.
I thought somebody was like saying you can't swim.
Yeah, there was a debate about swimming.
But you can surf?
You can surf, and I accept that to mean kiteboard as well. So I can now kiteboard without hiding anymore. What else did they say? Stores can now open up. I think on June 8th, malls can open. You have to wear a mask everywhere. Maybe even you're supposed to be wearing a mask even when you're walking around outside, not even in a store. So it's incredibly strict here still.
But next Friday will be the first Friday that restaurants will be open.
Okay.
And what is that, 25% capacity?
Yeah. I could see myself eating at like La Pescaderia here in the neighborhood.
Because it's
outside.
and you're
Yeah,
on a picnic table. And
yeah,
it's,
you could sit in a sunny picnic table away from other people and probably be fine. I mean, we've already been eating the food to go from there, so what's the difference?
Yeah.
I don't think it's living on those old tables. But other than that, I don't know that I really feel like going to an indoor sit-down restaurant where people are wearing masks and stuff.
I have to say, cooking at home, like, cooking's a little stressful because I don't want to cook too early in the day, but then we have this podcast, and it's always like, a lot of times we're kind of late. We did the Tonight Show late because we were all eating fairly late, but I enjoy cooking now. I mean, we've learned to make so many new dishes. Before,
I wish I could say the same.
Before, I feel like there was 5 dishes that Kristen and I could make pretty well that we would throw in the mix, and it's always like tacos and stuff. But now she's made this killer lasagna. I've come up with a couple of new shrimp recipes. We're barbecuing. Like, there's just so many more options that, in many ways, I'm like feeling more comfortable about just eating at home. And I assume it's saving a lot of money. I got your
No doubt about
I got
that.
your little Mint message to me this time where it was like, you've only spent 10% of what you normally spend. And I'm like, that's good.
Yeah. Touche Films here says that he just sent Photog Mike an email with both of us on it. So, yeah, hope he's doing all right because I don't think he's in here tonight.
I read an article last night. I couldn't sleep, and I wound up reading every comment on this Reddit post. If you go to reddit/r/investing, one of the top posts for yesterday had to do with new data coming out about credit cards.
Oh, yeah.
And it said something like credit card deferments are up 1,000% compared to this time last year. And I don't know if the math in the title was right. Maybe it was like 100%, not 1,000.
No, but think about it. 1,000% isn't that much. It's just up 10 times.
10 times.
That's not that much.
Okay.
Wouldn't you expect it to be worse than that?
Well, the article wasn't that exciting, but the conversation that came out of it was really interesting. Because a lot of people were saying what's happening right now is many credit card companies have said, you can just defer payment. We're not going to hold this against you. But that's only for maybe a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months. But there's going to come a point when the credit cards are going to say, we need our payment now. And it's going to jump up to what are the crazy rates that you can get on credit cards? It's like the 28% and stuff. Maybe there's laws now that prevent it from being too high, but it's still a huge amount that you have to pay if you don't pay your credit card bill on time. And I think a lot of people are just making the argument that right now we're in this position where there's 2 cliffs that we're coming up to. The first cliff is, when does the PPP money run out? If there's businesses that are not quite open, they have this money from the government that's allowing them to pay their employees and keep employment up, and it's allowing all those workers to have a paycheck, right? But at some point, that's got to end. And then the second one, and I think that's like June. June's when the PPP is supposed to end. And then July is at the moment when the federal assistance in the unemployment ends. So the extra $600 that everyone's getting will end, in theory, in July. Now, in 2008, they extended this for many, many, many more months. Unemployment, I don't know that they did the $600 thing, but unemployment normally is capped out at like 23 weeks.
Okay.
And then the last time this happened, 2008, when we had the financial crisis, maybe it went up to, I'm going to be wrong, but it was like 53 weeks.
6 months to a year.
Yeah. And so what happens when we start reaching these deadlines where there's no more PPP? We don't do that again. We don't pass that again. What happens when unemployment is burned up and you've used it all and the government isn't adding the extra $600 to it? A lot of people, maybe even already now, are using their credit card to make payments to bills, mortgages, rent, that sort of thing, thinking that this will all be over in a few months, and if I can just weather the storm and don't max out my credit card yet, I'll be okay. But we know how irresponsible Americans are at saving. What happens when a large percentage of people hit those credit card limits? Or what they were arguing in this conversation was a lot of credit card companies are going to start limiting people's limits because they know what's coming, and they're going to say, look, we can't afford to give you the $10,000 limit. We're going to knock that down to $7,500, and boom, right there, you're going to lose 25% of your flexibility. And so people are just speculating, is it good to buy Visa? Is it good to buy MasterCard? Is it good to buy Discover or Amex? Well, Discover and Amex, they're actually the ones footing the money. Whereas MasterCard and Visa, they're just processing it, but the money behind those credit cards are coming from the bank itself. So the bank is the one that's on the line with these loans that are going out. So Visa and MasterCard, they're just like processing.
What were the other two? American Express?
Like American Express and maybe Discover. Oh, and there were some other ones where, you know, they're the ones acting as the bank as well. They're not just a payment processor.
Greg asks, what's your cost per meal per person eating in versus eating out?
I have no idea. I mean, I know what it is eating out. Eating out, like at a good restaurant, is probably $50 to $100 a meal.
Yeah.
So it's like $25 a person, $50 a person on average, maybe. Yeah. I mean, you can go to the Mexican place that's closed right now, but you could probably eat cheaper there. You could probably get it down to like $10 or $20 a person. That's assuming you're doing takeout with no alcohol.
Yeah.
You know.
But at home, like tonight, I had a quesadilla with a can of refried beans, a can of black beans, and cheese. And Katie and I ate that. It wasn't quite as fancy as your meal, but when I think about how many quesadillas we can get out of those two cans,
yeah,
we probably ate like 10 to 20% of those two cans. So, you know, maybe a normal meal for both of us would be, I would just say maybe $60 if we went out to a normal restaurant. Versus this meal was maybe like $3, $4. I don't know.
Yeah, we did a low carb dinner tonight. So we did like a keto thing.
Okay.
And we had a bunch of chicken breast, we had some shrimp, and we had some mixed vegetables from a bag. That was it. So I don't know, like we buy stuff in bulk, so I don't know how much that was, but that meal could have easily been $8 each, $16 total, maybe. So I mean, you're saving. I mean, and that's the thing that's encouraging about this is I think a lot of Americans are going to break the cycle of spending so much money going out. I mean, watching some of these video clips we have, and people are walking around with the masks with all of the Starbucks and stuff. I'm like, man, I used to buy that all the time. Dude, I don't spend any money on it.
Uncle Pennywise, or whatever he wants to be called, he's becoming a bigger and bigger, we're becoming bigger and bigger fans of you. He says he has a Popeye's chicken sandwich today.
That thing is so freaking good. Did you have a bite out of mine?
I just broke a little piece off of that chicken, man, and I think it was the most delicious chicken I've ever had in my life.
And they have really good biscuits too. Like Popeyes is legit.
Man, how far away is the closest Popeyes from us?
30 minutes. You gotta go to Cognos. But if you go, you gotta get like, well, you can't go because you're not gonna eat chicken now.
I'm a vegetarian. I know, but like just once, you know, just kill one chicken to taste it.
I told you that there's like chickens roaming around in the parking lot outside of Popeyes. It's a little weird.
You about ready to wrap this show, Patrick? We've been going an hour and 15 minutes. I'm losing steam here. And I don't think I have the stamina to do the Zoom after show chat, but it's still going on. Touche Films will post a link, and it's been cool. Just photographers and videographers get together each night and just chat on Zoom and talk about stories, and it's been a cool experience. So definitely check that out if you guys have time. Anything else you wanted to mention, Pat?
I don't believe so. I'm kind of out of ideas, to be honest.
Me too. Well, guys, thank you so much. We appreciate all of you so much, and we will see you tomorrow.